You're listening to The Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV, Crimson Tide Kickoff, play-by-play for Alabama sports, and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for The Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Gary Harris Show for this Thursday, March 21, 2024. The NCAA tournament kicks off today. I know we had the first four games played the last couple of nights, but now we are down to 64 teams, and it gets started this morning at 11:15 a.m. on CBS. SEC member Mississippi State takes on Big Ten member Michigan State. MSU versus MSU, if you will. At 11:15, the Bulldogs and the Spartans, and then we'll have, of course, games all day long, well into the evening, and the same thing on Friday as we wrap up the first round. Second round games on Saturday and Sunday, and that's the neat thing about this tournament. You go from 64 down to 16 in just one weekend. So by Sunday night, we'll have the Sweet 16, certainly hoping that Alabama will be involved in that. Of course, the women's tournament is underway as well. Alabama women play tomorrow afternoon out in Austin at 4:30 against Florida State. And then really after that game, it works out well. Alabama men play 6:35 out in Spokane against Charleston. So you'll have back-to-back. The women are on ESPN2, and the men are on True TV. So kind of a double whammy for your Friday. And it's supposed to be rainy tomorrow, Wyatt, so be good to be in watching games or going to a watch party or one of those things because if it's raining outside, you know, you're not going to be out, and will, of course, could impact the softball game. Alabama's scheduled to play Virginia Tech tomorrow evening at home. But welcome into the Gary Harris Show. I'm Gary Harris, White Fulton right there on the other side of the glass, manning the controls, taking your phone calls in this first hour on the First and Main Condominiums hotline at 205-342-9904. And we got a jam-packed show, which I'll run down for you here in just a moment. I do need to tell you this hour of the Gary Harris Show being brought to you, as always, by Alabama Credit Union. Member-owned and not-for-profit, it really is just a better way of banking. Membership has its privileges. Find out more at alabamacu.com. That's alabamacu.com, or you can by and see them at one of their many locations around the great state of Alabama, including, of course, the main office right here in Tuscaloosa. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Some rules and restrictions do apply. See if you're eligible for membership, then join today and feel good about your money and put a little extra change in your pocket. All right, 9:30 this morning, Roger Hoover from the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Going to talk all kinds of Bama sports with Roger. And, he does women's basketball. He does baseball on the TV side. He's done some men's basketball. So we'll be talking with Roger Hoover about this busy time at the University of Alabama in sports. Can't wait to visit with Roger. At 10 o'clock, softball conversation with stats keeper for ESPN Research, Karen Johns, former All-American catcher at South Carolina, former head coach at Florida and Virginia, former pitching coach at Alabama and Mississippi State. So we always love to talk some softball with Karen. And then at 10:30, my pal Jeff Spiegel, longtime sports anchor, host of The Zone at ABC 3340. So jam-packed as far as the guests are concerned today. So looking forward to that as always. And right now, Wyatt, let's go ahead, and because I got a lot to cover, let's go ahead and kick them off with some Thursday morning headlines right here on the Gary Harris Show. So lot to cover. And Alabama softball last night, 32-0 against UAB all time, coming into the game here in Tuscaloosa at Rhodes Stadium. You know why? That's some pressure. When you're 32-0 against a team, and last night, it was not easy at all. Alabama had blown out UAB over in Birmingham earlier this season, but they trailed 2-0 and wound up not only trailing in that game, but having to come back, but they do get it done. They find a way to win. 4-3 was the final score, and Alabama fans kind of sigh of relief there. 33-0 now all-time against UAB. As we said, Alabama hosts Virginia Tech in a big non-SEC series this weekend. Virginia Tech, really good team with one of the best pitchers in the country. We'll talk more about that with Karen Johns coming up. It was pro day yesterday at the Alabama indoor facility, the Hank Crisp indoor facility. And, boy, it's always a big day. There were 12 draft-eligible Alabama players on hand. Some of them worked out. Some of them did not, but it was still a busy day. Former Crimson Tide head coach Nick Saban, who, of course, has been sending first-round draft picks into the league with regularity since taking over. Remember 2008, the first time that Saban had a draft at Alabama. Of course, that really wasn't his team. Not a single player was drafted. Since that time, it's just been one right after another, and probably 3 or 4 more first-round picks this year. But he wasn't there, but new head coach Kalen DeBoer was. And it was a really, really good day for Alabama football. You had 4 NFL head coaches there, Mike Tomlin, Mike McCarthy, Antonio Pierce. Help me out, Wyatt, the new coach of the Titans. What's his name? Tennessee Titans head coach. He was there. I went blank on that last night on TV, too. Oh, gosh, let me look it up. His dad, Callahan, longtime NFL offensive line coach. But Brian Callahan, the new coach of the Titans, was on hand as well. So 4 NFL head coaches were there to check out the talent. One thing that everybody noticed was the 20 to 25 pounds that Latham, the big offensive tackle for Alabama, has lost, and that's going to make a difference for him. He's going to be a first-rounder, and he's a guy that everybody loves his size, J.C. Latham, but they don't want him playing at 360, which is about what he played at Alabama this year. But he's down to around 340, which makes a big difference. And he figures to be a first-rounder. So does Dallas Turner, who did the bench press yesterday, didn't do too much. Terry and Arnold figures to be a first-rounder. I still think there's a chance that somebody might like Kool-Aid McKinstry enough later in the first round to maybe grab him. Not for sure on that, but I feel confident about those other 3.
Yeah, with Kool-Aid McKinstry, not going to, get my hopes too high here, but I saw the Packer scout walking around with him a good bit right before he started working out. So maybe Kool-Aid's a Packer. He can go join Xavier McKinney up there. Yeah,
could be their 2 of their DBs. Xavier McKinney was a big pickup for the Packers in free agency, but it was a great day. Wyatt was there, and it's one of those times when all the hard work that these Alabama players have done, and then they get to kind of pay it off. Why did tell me this, since you were there, why did Jace McClellan not work out? Did you find out the reason?
There's rumors that foot injury he suffered is still bothering him. That's the rumor. I didn't get any clarification. I barely saw him. I saw him walking around with a couple of people that I didn't recognize, and then when the workout started, it seemed he disappeared.
Yeah, it has to be something like that, you would think, just because of the fact that running backs are not as valued as they once were in the league, but still, I think Jace McClellan's a versatile guy. He catch it out of the backfield. He's got speed. I think he's a guy that is going to have a good opportunity to make an NFL team. Duke Johnson, linebacker out of Georgia, commits to the Crimson Tide. Daryl Duke Johnson, this is a guy that's one of the highest rated recruits for class 2025. He's a top 50 player nationally, and as a linebacker, extremely fast and athletic. Right around 200 pounds. He started out as a defensive back in high school, so that speaks to his speed and athleticism. 6'3", about 200. And I tell you this, Alabama recruiting under Kalen DeBoer doesn't feel a lot different than Alabama recruiting under Nick Saban. The Tide is reeling them in, man. It's just the way it is. Alabama and the rest of the SEC, their 2025 conference schedules were announced yesterday. And, of course, we still haven't played the 2024 season yet, but home games for Alabama in 2025 in the SEC will be LSU, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. Road games will be Auburn, Georgia, Missouri, and South Carolina. That's for 2025, as the SEC schedules for that year have already been released. Of course, we're focused right now on 2024, but that's good to know. Here's a note on the NCAA tournament that has a big local tie-in, and excited to pass this along. I was able to get it on my sports show last night. A lot of you may not be aware of this, but of course, Grambling State, out of the SWAC, beat Montana State last night. Now, Grambling will move on to play Purdue, 88-81 in overtime. But in that game, former Shelton State Buck Antoine Burnett had 18 points and 5 rebounds for Grambling in their first ever NCAA tournament victory. So that's pretty neat to know. 18-5, that's a big game. And Grambling came from behind in that game. They were down 9 at the break. they went down double digits, Wyatt, and early in the second half, and then came back and won it. Now, they're not going to beat Purdue, but of course, we used to always say that. But then, we had a 16 a few years ago when Virginia lost to Maryland, Baltimore County or whatever that school was. You remember that?
I remember the acronym UMBC. I don't know what it was for.
It was. So we have had, a number one seed go down. So it has happened. And for years it was close. Princeton almost beat Georgetown one year. So there is precedent for it. But still, big game from him. And congratulations to Grambling. So we're off and running here on the Gary Harris Show. And 205-342-9904 is the number if you want to give us a ring. On the First and Main Condominiums hotline, we'd love to hear from you, whether you want to talk Bama football, back on the practice field this afternoon, and Kalen DeBoer is going to meet with the local media today, so we'll look forward to that. Of course, men's and women's basketball, baseball at Georgia this weekend. We'll talk more about that with Roger Hoover, and we'll have just a great show on tap. We'd love to hear from you, 205-342-9904. It's 11 minutes after the hour of 9 a.m. We're going to take our first time out. We'll be back with more of the Gary Harris Show right here on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama sports.
This season of Alabama football on Tide 100.9 brought to you by Birmingham Racecourse Casino. Just a few minutes away where you can be a winner too.
From the University of Alabama, this is Crimson Tide Today. It's a daily update on Bama sports, and it's brought to you by CB&S Bank. Bank anywhere, at any time with CB&S Bank's digital solutions. Managing your finances has never been so easy. Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. On Thursday's edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, we'll be joined by Alabama Director of Athletics, Greg Byrne.
And obviously really happy for both our men's and women's program. Really pleased for our kids. And have the women be there for the third time in 4 years. Nate's got them back there again, and with a high seed. And I'm very pleased for the young men and young women in our program and the resiliency and the hard work that they put in to put us in this position. And now you got to go. It's one game at a time in March, right? Got to go see what they can do. But it's exciting to see the continued progress for both of our programs, and couldn't be happier for everybody involved.
I'll have more in a moment.
CB&S Bank has a long history of stability and a legacy of serving our community's needs for generations. You could say we know a thing or two about tradition. We've been family, community, and financially strong since we began in 1906. Being a team player is part of our culture. That's why at CB&S Bank, we're proud to sponsor the University of Alabama Athletics and prouder to take the field or court with you. Visit cbsbank.com today. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Join us this afternoon at 2 p.m. Central for Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, featuring interviews with Director of Athletics Greg Byrne, women's basketball head coach Christy Curry, and former Crimson Tide player, SEC legend Richard Hendricks. Crimson Drive is streaming live to all CTSN social media platforms, and the conversations will be archived as well on the Alabama Insider podcast. Crimson Tide Today is brought to you by CB&S Bank. Crimson Tide Today is a production of the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Sorry, but
As Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. Get a meat and 3 vegetables for just $8.49. Or for a lighter appetite, try the Lucky Lunch soup, salad, or sandwich combo. I'll see you at the Free.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A partly sunny sky today with a mild afternoon. Tuscaloosa's high 75. Tonight, the sky becoming mostly cloudy, the low 45. Tomorrow, cool and wet. Cloudy with rain likely much of the day. Tomorrow's high at 64. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 51 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You see him on WVUA 23 covering sports and on Tider Insider TV on Tuesday nights. Don't miss a minute of the Gary Harris Show. Weekdays from 9 to 11 on Tide 100.9.
All right, 9:16. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. Gary Harris, Wyatt Fulton with you. And yesterday I told you I would unveil my bracket this morning here on the show. And I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. If we get a phone call, we'll take it. But I'm going to do my bracket. And, Yeah, you know what? I kind of mixed my bracket with being rational and then also some wishful thinking, so I don't mind telling you that. But we'll start in the East. UConn's the number 1 seed, so I'll just break it down for you. I got UConn beating Stetson, of course, in the opener. I've got Florida Atlantic knocking off Northwestern. That ought to be a pretty good game. I've got San Diego State beating UAB, and I know that's not a popular pick, but I'm going to take the Aztecs. I've got Auburn over Yale. I've got Brigham Young over Duquesne, Illinois over Morehead State, Washington State over Drake, and Iowa State over South Dakota State. In the second round, I've got UConn taking down Florida Atlantic. Got an upset pick, San Diego State over Auburn, Illinois over BYU, and Iowa State over Washington State. Continuing in the East, Sweet 16 matchups. I've got UConn taking down San Diego State. I've got Iowa State over Illinois State. And then in the Elite Eight, I've got UConn beating Iowa State. In the West, which is the Bama Regional, I've got North Carolina State over Howard. I've got over Wagner, I should say. North Carolina State over Wagner. I've got Michigan State knocking off Mississippi State. That's another one that's not going to be a popular pick. I think most people are going with the Bulldogs there. I like Tom Izzo's toughness come tournament time. I've got St. Mary's going ahead and taking down Grand Canyon. There are a lot of people picking Grand Canyon in that one. And I've got Alabama beating College of Charleston. I've got New Mexico with an upset over Clemson, and Baylor beating Colgate, Dayton beating Nevada, which might regret that one, and Arizona over Long Beach State. In the Sweet 16, let me get to the round of 32 first. Don't overshoot myself here. Got North Carolina beating Michigan State. I've got Alabama beating St. Mary's. I've got Baylor over New Mexico, and I've got Arizona over Dayton. Then in the Sweet 16, how about this one? I got Bama knocking off North Carolina. And if Bama can get there, I really do like them against North Carolina. And I've got Arizona in what ought to be a heck of a game taking down Baylor. I really went back and forth on that one. I really did. Scott Drew's another one of these coaches come tournament time. He's really good. In the Elite Eight, I got Bama upsetting Arizona. Why not take Bama to go to the Final Four? All those Final Four caliber teams, Wyatt, that have not made it. I don't think this is a Final Four caliber team, but I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to say Bama gets hot. Why not? Makes it fun. So I've got UConn and Bama in one national semifinal. All right, over in the South Regional, got Houston, obviously, advancing against Longwood. And what ought to be a good game, I've got Texas A&M knocking off Nebraska. I got Wisconsin over James Madison. That's another one that I went back and forth on. And I got Duke beating Vermont. This is another pick that will go against the grain probably. I think a lot of people are riding NC State. I think they had a marvelous run there in the SEC or the ACC tournament. But I think we're going to see the NC State that we saw most of the season. I like Texas Tech, too. They're tough. I'm going to take Texas Tech in that one. I'm going to take Kentucky over Oakland. Florida over Colorado. Colorado got in or advanced last night, beating Boise State. I'm going to take Marquette over Western Kentucky. Then in the second round, and I think A&M could give Houston some trouble, but Houston, man, they've got to get to Final Four with Kelvin Sampson, as good as they've been the last few years. Got Houston beating A&M. I've got Duke over Wisconsin. How about that? I've got Kentucky over Texas Tech, and I got Marquette over Florida. Then in the Sweet 16, I've got Houston over Duke and Kentucky over Marquette. In the Elite Eight, I've got Houston taking down Kentucky, Houston advancing to the Final Four. In the Midwest Regional, Purdue over Grambling, TCU over Utah State. That's another one that I went back and forth on. A lot of people have. Here's one of my upset specials. Wyatt, I've got McNeese over Gonzaga, Will Wade and the boys. And this is another one that a lot of people are on the Samford bandwagon. I get it. It's a nice story. Bucky Ball is real. Kansas is without two of its best players, but this is still Kansas. I'm going to take Kansas over Samford. Hope I'm wrong. South Carolina and Oregon, man, that ought to be a heck of a game. I went back and forth on that one. I think South Carolina's defense will be the deciding factor. I'm going to take the Gamecocks over the Ducks. I've got Creighton over Akron. I've got Colorado State over Texas. Slight upset. And I got Tennessee. I think they're going to rebound in this tournament and beat St. Peter's. All right, in the second round, I got Purdue over TCU. Here we go. I'm riding the upset wave. McNeese over Kansas. McNeese to the Sweet 16. South Carolina and Creighton. I've got Creighton winning that one. And I've got Tennessee over Colorado State. In the Elite Eight, or in the Sweet 16, I'm sorry. I've got Purdue over McNeese, and I've got Tennessee over Creighton. Then in the Elite Eight, for a trip to the Final Four, I've got Purdue beating Tennessee. So my Final Four, UConn, Bama, Houston, and Purdue. Come on, Bama. I'll take this one all the way to I'll brag about this the rest of my life. If I pick them to go to the Final Four and they go to their first ever Final Four.
Especially in a year like this, if this is the year that you correctly predicted, Alabama making the Final Four. Hey, Gary Harris, what's the lottery numbers?
That's right.
We need them.
Everybody just have to give me my props. But I've got Bama go to the Final Four, but that is where it ends. UConn beats Alabama in the national semifinal. And then I've got Houston over Purdue in the other national semifinal. Or I'm sorry. Let me get this straight. I got Purdue over Houston. And then in the national championship game, I've got UConn beating Purdue, and UConn is the national champion in my bracket. So there it is, pick by pick. And, wishful thinking on Alabama, but what the heck, man. I just decided all these teams that I thought had a legit chance to make it to the Final Four didn't make it. I really don't think this is a Final Four team, but they're capable. There's nobody they're going to play that they're going to be in awe of because they've played the schedule. They've played Purdue. They've played Creighton. They've played Arizona. They've played in the SEC against Tennessee and Kentucky and Florida and Auburn. So, and I remember what Nate Oates says, and I don't know if they'll defend well enough to make it happen. But he says, they're capable of beating anybody in the country, and I believe that. And so I'm going to play a hunch here, and of all things, Alabama, just don't go out tomorrow night. At least win the first one after I've picked you to go to the Final Four. But, I'm going to have a little fun with it. I just do this for fun anyway. And I actually, I did get in one of the ESPN brackets with some friends of mine. And so I did that one on the computer. And then I filled my paper bracket out. For some reason, I keep thinking I might have taken Houston in the one in the computer over Purdue. I've got Purdue written down here, but I'm thinking about flipping that one right now because I think I meant to put Houston in the beating Purdue, but I've got Purdue and UConn here in the championship game. So I'll stay with that. Zach Edey is in Purdue's another one of these teams that's come up flat so many times in the NCAA tournament. But, and I think I'll have, listen, outside of Alabama, there's a lot of people that are going to have UConn, Houston, and Purdue in their Final Four. That's chalk. But I do think this. I do think Alabama, in my opinion, is in the bracket with the weakest number one seed. I think North Carolina is the weakest number one seed. I think Arizona is a very good number two seed. And I think Baylor is a really strong team in that region too. But again, I'm going to ride the Bama bandwagon here. So got Bama going to the Final Four. How about that? All right, it's 9:26 here on the Gary Harris Show. And speaking of Alabama, we're going to talk with Roger Hoover from the Crimson Tide Sports Network, and one of the really bright young sportscasters in the country. Does a terrific job covering Alabama sports. And I texted him last night. I'm pretty sure he's in Austin with the Alabama women. But we'll ask him for sure, because, again, I don't know what the radio setup for that is for the women in the NCAA tournament, but I'm sure Roger's probably with the women. But he also calls baseball and calls men's basketball on TV and a lot of other sports as well. So we'll be back with Roger Hoover from the Crimson Tide Sports Network coming up right here on the Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama sports. 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. I don't have you on regular. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions, both dining rooms, at the bar, and outside on the beautiful patio. Come by and say hello to Kim and Lisa, the Billy's management dream team. Billy's, good food, good friends, and good time.
The flagship station for Alabama Crimson Tide football.
Alabama touchdown.
Only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:30. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. Yay, Alabama welcomes us back in. We've got Roger Hoover from the Crimson Tide Sports Network. As I said earlier, he does a lot of great work over different sports for the Crimson Tide Sports Network on both the radio and the TV side. And this is a special time with March Madness, with baseball, with softball, with gymnastics, getting ready for the SEC championships, tennis, track and field, everything going on at the University of Alabama. And joining us to talk about it is Roger Hoover. Good morning, Raj.
Good morning, Gary. Roll Tide here in Yale, Alabama fired me up. Can't wait to get all the madness started.
Yeah, well, let me check your itinerary. Are you with the women out in Austin?
Yes, yeah. The women's team flew out to Austin yesterday, so we'll have a practice day, press conference, all that good stuff coming up today, and then take on Florida State tomorrow. But yes, I'll be with the women's team as deep as they go, and we hope they can stretch it into a second or even a third weekend. Let's go to the Final Four in the title game.
Why not? I mean, think big, because Alabama's got a really good team. This is a tough matchup. Of course, you expect that an 8-9 matchup. You got two good teams. Florida State's really talented, and then Alabama, of course, losing Jessica Timmons, which is, it's a huge blow. There's no other way around it, but it's got to be a next player up mentality, and I know that's what Christy Curry has. How do you see this matchup between the Tide and the Seminoles?
Well, it is going to be a really good test for Alabama. Florida State's been playing well down the stretch. They've been 9-3 in their last 12 games, and they've beaten two SEC teams already this season in Florida and Tennessee. So it's certainly a talented team that is used to making the NCAA tournament. But now the same can be said for Christy Curry and the Crimson Tide. 3 of the last 4 years making the NCAA tournament, and really this year taking all the drama out of it on Selection Sunday by the strong regular season they put together. Had a great close to the regular season, winning the final 3 games as opposed to last year when Alabama lost the final 3 games regular season, then had quick exits in the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament. I think it's a different story this year. Even though Alabama lost to Tennessee in the quarterfinals of the SEC tournament, you mentioned the Jessica Timmons injury. That happened in the first half and really threw Alabama off kilter the rest of the way. And Tennessee also had a good shooting day. So it was just a tough performance last time out. But Alabama's had 2 weeks to move on from that game and also 2 weeks to get ready for life without Jessica Timmons on the floor. I think Carly Weathers is going to step up in a huge way for Alabama. As you know, she has played some starters minutes before, and even off the bench this year, she's been playing over 20 minutes a game for this team. A really good spark defensively. We knew last year she was a really good shooter. She still has to have the offense on the floor, and she's going to be counted on for a lot of points in this role coming up here. But her defense is as good as anybody's in the SEC from a guard standpoint. So I think Alabama's got some confidence there, and you need, once again, great performance performances by Sarah Ashley Barker and Aaliyah Nye. If Alabama gets that, they can play with anybody in the country. We've seen that. So it's a tough matchup coming up tomorrow against Florida State, and then certainly if you win that ball game, move on, likely playing number 1 seed Texas on their home floor at the Moody Center. But what a challenge. And Alabama has seen some great games between Christy Curry and Vic Schaefer through the years at Mississippi State, including his last game at Mississippi State, a great win for the Crimson Tide in Starkville. So who knows, maybe some history could repeat coming up here in Austin.
Roger Hoover with us. Yeah, you did a good job of kind of summing that up without Timmons, but you are talking about 11 points, 4.5 rebounds a game, 30 starts in 32 games. She's really an athletic, emotional player. But you're right, Carly Weathers is certainly capable. And then you do have the dynamic duo of Aaliyah Nye and Sarah Ashley Barker, and those two players are kind of the heartbeat of this team. I want to ask you specifically about Barker, Roger. In your years of doing Alabama women's basketball, have you seen another player that brings as much to a team as she does in really every area? Defense, offense. She can rebound. She can run the floor. She dives for loose balls. She'll get in a teammate's face if she needs to. I'd like you just to speak to the impact that she's had on this team. Last year transferring over from Georgia and was good last year, but this year she just took a major step. Covering her all year and what Sarah Ashley Barker brings to this Alabama basketball team.
Yeah, 10 years for me calling women's basketball on the radio. I haven't seen a better all-around player for Alabama than Sarah Ashley Barker, because we've seen some really great players at times. So you think of Jasmine Walker, Brittany Davis, who are great scorers. But in terms of the whole package, especially the defensive intensity she brings, just nobody wants to go up against her. And then she's been able to really score and take over ball games as well, score in the 20s and 30s when Alabama needs it. And there have been games where they've needed that. And really just in the last few years have not had somebody been able to do it time and time again. And then just the leadership. I mean, she gets in her teammates' face, like you mentioned. I think she's going to be a coach one day. And I think she really is going to be set up for success based on how hard she played as a player. I think you always hear that about some of the legendary coaches, like when they were playing, like they were the most intense people on the floor. She is that right now for the Crimson Tide. She's got a tremendous future ahead of her, and love what she's been able to do with this basketball team. And I think, too, playing at Alabama just means something more to her than most players due to all the family connections. Her dad, Jay, obviously, but, especially starting her career at Georgia and kind of seeing what life was like away from Alabama, then getting to come home and now take this team to back-to-back NCAA tournaments and hopefully a deeper run this year. Again, I haven't seen a player have quite the impact on any of Christy's teams than Sarah Ashley's had in this one.
All right, you think obviously you'd love to get that crack at top seed Texas out there in Austin. The game tomorrow night, do you feel good about Alabama being able to post a victory over Florida State?
I do. I just think this team, again, has had a really good attitude all throughout the year, even with some adversity. It really doesn't get this group down. I think the chemistry also has been better on this team than any of the ones I've seen before. So I really do feel confident. I think Alabama's played well on the road this season, especially some tough SEC road environments. Tomorrow they're going to be playing right after Texas plays, and only about a quarter of the fans are going to stick around. We know that in NCAA tournament basketball, especially in these host sites in the first two rounds. So I feel like this is a group that'll kind of find their own energy and get off to a good start. And I do feel pretty confident about how everything stacks up for the Crimson Tide, even based on talking to some people that have seen Florida State in person. They feel good about Alabama in this matchup. So I got to roll with the Crimson Tide, and I think they'll make it very interesting coming up on Sunday if they are able to play Texas.
Roger, on the men's side for Alabama, of course, they play. It works out perfectly. I was talking here for watch parties. You get the women at 4:30 on ESPN2, and then you get the men on True TV at 6:35. So it ought to work out pretty well for viewing parties and so forth. But for the men, I did a bracket. What the heck? I said Alabama's had these Final Four caliber teams that didn't make it, and I don't think this is a Final Four caliber team, but they could get hot. I picked Alabama to go to the Final Four. What the heck? But right off the bat, tomorrow night, this is a College Charleston team that can shoot it. They're a lot like Alabama with the style that they play. I mean, it's no gimme for the Tide tomorrow night. I don't believe, Roger, do you?
I don't think it's a gimme, but I think Alabama's set up for success. I think playing a team that plays a similar style of basketball, I think that's really good for this group. And we've seen that throughout the season, even in SEC play and some non-conference matchups where you say that going in. You know, this team that likes to get up and down, shoot a lot of threes, or get to the rim quickly. Alabama usually does pretty well in ball games like that. And I feel good, too, about the fact that Alabama's getting as close to full strength as you can get with Rylan Griffin, more time for him to heal and recover, same for Latrell Wrightsville Jr. We haven't seen the full complement of Alabama's roster really healthy since that blowout against Texas A&M and when Alabama was playing its best basketball. So I think for all those factors, I just got a good feeling about this group. And I think no team really around the country needed the reset button more than this group did after, tough way for the regular season to close out. You fall short of your championship goals with a loss to Tennessee. And I'm sick and tired of seeing the Florida Gators for this group after, the game in Gainesville and the game in Nashville. So I think just looking across the floor and not seeing orange or blue, I think that's a good thing for Alabama coming up. And again, I think they've finally been able to rest and get healthy. I don't think they were really rested that well for that game against Florida a couple weeks ago, and even with the SEC tournament. That's come and gone. Now let's move forward. And I like Alabama's draw, like you were talking about. There is certainly a great path forward for this Crimson Tide team.
Yeah, I just love to see them get hot and make a run because they've got the potential to do it. And, now they're being overlooked a little bit, so maybe that'll be good for them. On the baseball side, Roger, I had Coach Vaughn on a couple of days ago, and we talked in depth about that Tennessee series. And it's just one series, but what it could mean for this team going forward. You're opening at home against the fifth-ranked team in the country. You drop the Friday night game, and you get pounded pretty good, and you come back and win on Saturday and Sunday. You called it. I mean, I just thought it was a huge series victory for Alabama from a momentum standpoint and from a confidence standpoint as they get into SEC play to be able to win that series against the Tennessee Vols. What did you see from Alabama baseball, particularly in that Sunday game that went back and forth and they were able to hang on late?
Yeah, I think the weekend just really validated all the hard work that this group has put in, especially under a first-year coaching staff where they're kind of telling you their vision, but until you see it on the field, you don't truly see it. And I think Alabama did that over the weekend, especially like you mentioned. And that certainly was a tough loss on Friday night, but you come right back and you score 6 runs in the first 3 innings of the Saturday ball game against maybe one of the best pitchers in the SEC in Tennessee's Drew Beam. You hang on and get that win 6-3, and then, like you mentioned, back-and-forth game on Sunday, but Alabama punched back immediately every time Tennessee delivered a punch. And Gage Miller, the great 3-run homer, bottom of the 8th inning, and then you hang on despite some miscues in the 9th. What a thrilling finish for the Crimson Tide to get that win. And, I'm sitting up in the press box doing the post-game show, and I thought I was at Bryant-Denny or Neyland Stadium when I started smelling the cigar smoke. Our good buddy Reagan Starner of R&R Cigars handed out some cigars to the staff and the players down below, and it was fun to see that football tradition really translate well to baseball. And, that was really cool to see. Fun, emotional weekend. And then I love what Coach Vaughn talked about as well with me on Tuesday. It was a maturity test when you have to go now on the road to Alabama State, and the Crimson Tide really answered the challenge well. T.J. McCants tying a school record with 3 homers. No one had done that since G.W. Keller back in, I guess, 25 years ago, 1999. Yeah, really, really impressive to see that for T.J. McCants. And now is another test for this team because, Georgia, the team they're playing this weekend, they had a good start to the season, got swept by Kentucky and Lexington, but they're at home, and their whole goal is to find a way to stabilize their year against Alabama. SEC baseball is tough as in general, but on the road, it's really tough. So I think this is going to be a really good test to see kind of where this team is. If they can grind out a series weekend victory against Georgia, I think that's a really good sign moving forward for this team. But it's going to be tough, even though, again, fans may look at Georgia, say, oh, Crimson Tide, they're 0-3. They should be able to roll past these guys. No, it's SEC baseball. It's going to be a tough weekend, but I think Rob Vaughn has the team ready for the challenge.
Yeah, I do too. And when you look at, of course, we talk about men's basketball, never having been to a Final Four. Bama baseball hasn't been to the College World Series in 25 years. And last year we were a win away. Obviously, it's a long season, but do you look at this club as a team that has enough talent and has the potential to make it to Omaha?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the roster's really set up for it. Still have to see some players emerge on the pitching staff to make sure that weekend rotation is really filled out. Obviously, the Riley Quick injury kind of took away what Alabama had planned on paper that was going to be, a super regional or Omaha-worthy starting rotation. But Alabama's still in good shape with Ben Hess. Greg Perone, I thought, stood up in a huge way in Game 2 of that series against Tennessee. And now we hopefully will see Hagan Banks keep getting stretched out as Sunday starter. But, yeah, I mean, offensively, this lineup's there. This is offensively one of the best teams in SEC baseball and really matched a very good Tennessee ball club and lineup, really hit for hit, home run for home run over the weekend. So certainly all those tools are there, and I think the good start to the season has put Alabama's RPI in a really good spot, strength schedule's in a good spot. So I think, again, fans need to make sure they're getting tickets now and getting plans ready to go for hopefully hosting at least a regional in Tuscaloosa. And based on how the next few weeks go, you could be seeing super regional baseball at Sewell Thomas Stadium this year. I mean, that's how good this team looks to be. Now, they got to keep doing it. And I mentioned this is a huge test this weekend against Georgia, a team that has its back up against the wall, and they're going to be playing with their hair on fire against Alabama. So that's part of the beauty of SEC baseball, Gary. I think it's the best regular season of all the sports. If we look at just the ups and the downs that your team is going to go through over 10 weekends and 30 games with the best players in college baseball. It's a really fascinating ride, and I can't wait to see what's next for the Crimson Tide.
Roger Hoover from the Crimson Tide Sports Network joining us here for a couple of more minutes. And as I said on the show, this is that overlap time. And we got so much going on with all these sports. And then, of course, we got spring football, too. And, of course, you're part of the radio broadcast team for Crimson Tide football on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. And watching this transition, Roger, from Nick Saban to Kalen DeBoer, you know, Nick Saban's the best to ever do it, but I think it could not have gone any smoother from what I've seen. And granted, you know, in spring ball, still got fall camp before we ever play a game in September. But when you look at the transition and how it's gone, what are your takeaways?
I think there's been really good organization by Kalen DeBoer. I have an interview coming out later today on the Crimson Tide Sports Network social media accounts with Greg Byrne, talking about what kind of the transition from his point of view. And he's really liked the energy that Kalen's brought to practice and the way that the team, you know, really went after it hard in the fourth quarter program over the last few months. Obviously, that was a staple of Coach Saban's program through the years, but to see Alabama keep doing that with Kalen DeBoer, I think was good. And he's kind of put his own spin on things, you know, a little bit of music out there during pregame warm-ups and practice warm-ups, and just a lot of energy, a very energetic coaching staff. I think it's been good to see. You know, I know he talked yesterday with Ryan about how well Jalen Milroe's been doing, taking all the reps with the one. I think that's critical. I think this team will go as far as the quarterback will take it coming up this fall. So if Jalen's off to a good start in spring football, I think that's a great sign for the rest of this group. And still, I think we are a long way away from knowing what this roster is truly going to look like. I think the spring portal season, you're going to see Kalen DeBoer and his general manager, Courtney Morgan, be very selective about who they bring and add to this roster. I think they've got a good plan in place. So I can't wait to see how it all comes together and start this new era of Alabama football. Absolutely.
Roger, appreciate the time. Of course, looking forward to the broadcast tomorrow night with Alabama women's basketball against Florida State. What's the airtime?
Airtime is going to be 4:25 coming up across the network. So we look forward to it. It's going to be a busy weekend for all of us, but hopefully a lot of wins coming up for the Crimson Tide.
Thank you, Roger.
All right. Thank you guys for having me on. Roll Tide.
All right. That's Roger Hoover from Crimson Tide Sports Network. It's 9:46 here on the Gary Harris Show. Hey, prom season is here. And, you know, obviously, whether you're part of a junior senior prom or you have a separate junior prom and separate senior prom, whatever the prom makeup is at your school, you know, you want to be looking your best regardless. And if you're a young gentleman out there, the way that you can do that, the way that you can assure that you're going to be an eye catcher and that you're going to please your date is to go to T-Town Menswear and T-Town Gallery in the University Mall. Tom and the folks there can really have you looking your best, whether you want to go traditional, maybe a little conservative, or if you want to be a little bit flashy, or maybe even a lot flashy. T-Town Menswear and T-Town Gallery in the University Mall can give you the look that you want. And remember, you want to look good on that prom night, but those prom pictures, they last a long, long time. You're going to be looking at them 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, 50 years from now. And you want to look great, and you can do that by going to T-Town Menswear and T-Town Gallery, University Mall. Tom and the staff there will hook you up and get you ready for your prom. All right, we'll be back to wrap up this first hour of the Gary Harris Show. Phone lines are open. In fact, they're wide open. I had a call this morning. First and Main Condominiums Hotline 205-342-9904. We'll be right back after this.
Wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Visit alabamacu.com to learn more. Some rules and restrictions apply. See if you're eligible for membership, then join today and feel good about your money.
Tuscaloosa's Old Colony Golf Course is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to secure a tee time at the Tuscaloosa Championship Golf Course. Everyone can play. 205-562-3201. Old Colony is operated by Para.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A partly sunny sky today with a mild afternoon. Tuscaloosa's high 75. Tonight, the sky becoming mostly cloudy, the low 45. Tomorrow, cool and wet. Cloudy with rain likely much of the day. Tomorrow's high at 64. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 51 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You're listening to The Gary Harris Show. For Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:49. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. Gary Harris, Wyatt Fulton with you here in our Tide 109 FM studios. Of course, also you can listen to us at 12:30 a.m. WTBC. Download that app at Tide 109 app is a great way to have us with you and keep you up to date. And, of course, you can listen at Tide109.com as well. Reminder, all our interviews are podcast at the Tide 109 Podcast Center. And anywhere, in fact, you find your podcast, you can also get it Google, whatever I usually listen when I want to go back and listen to an interview. I listen to the Tide 109, 100.9 Podcast Center. But our podcasts are available anywhere you get your podcasts. So keep that in mind as well. 205-342-9904 if you want to give us a call here to wrap up this first hour. You're welcome to do so on the First and Main Condominiums hotline. Getting back to Alabama football yesterday, Wyatt, since you were there for the pro day, I wasn't able to be there. I was on the radio here, and I had a crew over there. And in fact, we had a little fun. I don't know if you saw it, but I had Alex Booth and Drew Pavon over there, and they were doing the interviews, and Terrion came over and grabbed the mic, the WVO 23 mic, and started interviewing Kool-Aid, and it made for a cool moment, and it was great. It was great for the TV station because that went viral with that. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that microphone was out there. I was standing right behind Drew and right beside Alex, and here I see Terrion come sprinting out of the corner of my eye, and he snatches that mic up and puts it right up to his mouth and is interviewing Kool-Aid, and so it was really, really cool moment for the TV station as well.
It was, and it also, I think, showed just how much chemistry and the bond between Kool-Aid and Terrion. Okay, they were together this year in that secondary, and I think that they're each other's biggest fans, and I think for Terrion it was like. And Terrion, listen, he's going to be a first rounder. We know that. But Kool-Aid is kind of on that fringe. He's going to be at worst a second rounder, I think. But I think what Terrion was doing was grabbing that mic and telling everybody that was listening, knowing that was going to go out of, hey, this guy's the real deal. Kool-Aid is the real deal. I mean, you're missing out if you don't grab this guy.
Yeah, they were having fun with each other, but they're smart enough. They know what they're doing. And so Terrion saying, hey, he's the real deal. Why would you not draft him? He's one of the best players in this class. Terrion knew what he was doing, and he's a smart kid. I mean, glad he did it.
There was a bigger message. Before we get to Ralph out on the First and Main Condos hotline, Kristen Saban was there.
Yeah, she was. She made an appearance. She was there supporting Terrion. Unfortunately, the entire Saban family couldn't be there, but I saw that Terrion was FaceTiming with Miss Terry for a little bit after he finished his drills. So just a really cool moment between that family. I really love the relationship that the Sabans and Terrion have built.
Yeah, almost like an adopted son, really. All right, let's jump out on the First and Main Condominiums hotline and welcome in Ralph. Good morning, Ralph.
Good morning, Gary. Enjoy your show very much.
Thank you.
Tried to get in yesterday, but I didn't make it. And you had a guest on speaking about NASCAR, but my point is I'm calling about the PGA. He made a statement that he saw reports that NASCAR was drawing more fans than the PGA, which I probably agree with. But I guess the reason I was calling is that I've noticed in the last, especially this year, that many of the top players just don't have any personality when it comes to interacting with the fans or acknowledging the fans. It seems like they're taking the same track that the NASCAR guys did years ago when the big names kind of fell out of the way, and they just were sort of the corporate button-down type guys. And now if you look at LIV, you see that personality where, the Mickelsons and those guys, they're very personable. And so I guess my point is it looks like the PGA has kind of changed overall.
Yeah, well, I do think, Ralph, that the split, and the guys leaving for LIV is hurt. There's no doubt about it. I'm still a big PGA Tour fan, and I love golf, and I love watching it on television, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all. LIV has brought out a different side of it, but I'm still kind of a traditionalist. That doesn't mean now that, I want to be, collar buttoned up and all that. I think you need to be loose, but I think golf is a sport that is played a certain way. I'm not a fan of professional golfers having music blaring while they're playing in shorts. Just that's me personally. I think that, the PGA Tour is about etiquette. It's about class. And, but I'm with you. I think this year there's been a slow start to the tour season. It has not been very interesting. The high point was when Nick Dunlap, as an amateur, still playing for Alabama, won the tournament out at Palm Springs. But then I thought last week, the Players Championship, I enjoyed that. That final round with Scotty Scheffler and Wyndham Clark and those guys battling down the stretch, and Scotty pointed out I enjoyed that. So I think now with the Masters right around the corner, and you're going to have some of the LIV guys coming over to play in the majors, a few of them, I think there'll be some interest. But I would like to see something come together here in the near future where we get all these guys back playing together.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I guess I missed the Bubba Watsons and those guys, and they just had a real outgoing personality, and I think that's missing in the PGA today. But I enjoy the game. I just really noticed it this past weekend, so I just thought I'd bring that up since the guy yesterday mentioned that he saw that the NASCAR was growing more than PGA. So that's interesting. Yeah,
it is, Ralph. But speaking of the PGA Tour, they're playing at the Valspar, and Alabama has a lot of players, former players in the event, big, strong contingent. Davis Riley is -3 through 10, so he's off to a really good start. Bud Colley's -2 through 10. Unfortunately, I think Robbie Shelton was -1. Unfortunately, Justin Thomas, Ralph, is stuck in neutral again. He is he's even par through 10 holes. He's played 3 par 5s and hasn't birdied any of them. I just don't know what's going on with him. I just can't.
Marriage.
You think that's it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I hope he gets it situated, because you talking about personality. He's got some, and I'd love to see him in contention down for some of these tournaments, but he has really struggled. Hey, thank you, Ralph.
Okay, have a good day.
You too. All right, 9:56 here, wrapping up this first hour. It's been brought to you by Alabama Credit Union, member-owned and not-for-profit. It's just a better way of banking. But Wyatt, looking at JT's scorecard, he played the front 9. He had a birdie. Well, he actually played the back 9 first, but on his first 9, he had a birdie on 12, which was his third hole. Then he had a bogey on 16, and now he's playing the front 9. He has played 3 par 5s, and as I said, he's parred every one of them. So he's only got 1 par 5 left. He is stuck in neutral. I mean, again, the putter, he's missed 2 8-footers. He just missed on number 1, which is a par 5. He missed let me look at how long the putt was before we close out this hour. He missed a 13-footer on that hole. So he's just not playing well. There's no other way around it. But hopefully he'll get a couple birdies here coming in and play a little bit better. But we'll update you on that tournament in the second hour as well, because we've got some other Alabama guys. Lee Hodges waiting to tee off, and I think there might be one more that's playing, but I'll check on that, and we'll have that for you in the second hour. All right, that's going to wrap it up for hour number 1. We'll start off the second hour talking softball with Karen Johns, and we'll also have Jeff Spiegel in the second hour. Your phone calls and more coming up on the Gary Harris Show. Las Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And, of course, you can find Las Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Las Tarascos features daily happy hour specials. And for the best Mexican cuisine in West Alabama, remember, the name is Las Tarascos with locations in Tuscaloosa and Northport.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Monsi Bolaños.
It was a good night in Seoul, Korea for Manny Machado and the Padres.
And a pitch is hammered in the air to deep left field. Way back off the scoreboard in left. A long home run for Machado. It's a 3-run homer, and the lead is reinflated. Padres up 15-11.
That was the final score, and you heard it all on the Padres radio network. San Diego scored 5 runs in the first inning against pitcher Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who was making his MLB debut. He only pitched that first inning, gave up 4 hits and 5 runs. Mookie Betts had 6 RBIs in the loss as San Diego and LA split the series 1-1 in Seoul, Korea. The first round of the men's NCAA basketball tournament gets underway today with 16 games, starting with Michigan State and Mississippi State at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time.
Now, this hour's West Alabama real-time news update from the Tuscaloosa Thread Newsroom.
UA and other college campuses across Alabama are studying the law signed into effect by Governor Ivey yesterday that bans diversity, equity, and inclusion programs on campuses in K-12 schools and state agencies. It's effective October 1st. Also on October 1st, it will become illegal for a third party to pick up and deliver absentee election ballots in Alabama under that new anti-ballot harvesting law signed by Governor Ivey yesterday. Alabama softball defeated UAB 4-5. They will host Virginia Tech at the Rhodes House this weekend.
Get 24/7 local news coverage and sports updates when you download the free Tuscaloosa Thread app and sign up for twice daily email newsletters. The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, hour number 2 of the Gary Harris Show right here on Tide 100.9 FM, 1230 AM WTBC. Gary Harris, Wyatt Fulton. This hour of the Gary Harris Show brought to you by Patterson Comer. Patterson Comer is dedicated to serving our clients. Integrity and excellence are the driving force behind the firm and its staff. And Paul Patterson and Mike Comer are right here with feet on the ground in West Alabama. Paul's in Tuscaloosa. Call him at 205-345-1000. Mike Comer's in Northport at 205-759-3939. If you have a legal issue that's a result of a personal injury, wrongful death, product liability, 18-wheeler accident, automobile accident, call Paul and Mike at Patterson Comer Law Firm. The commitment to serve our clients does not stop at the end of the workday. We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. PattersonComerLawFirm.com.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of services performed by other lawyers.
All right, there it is. Have to get that disclaimer in. All right, go ahead, Wyatt.
Sorry, dropped the ball on that one.
That's okay.
That was on me. We'll learn from the mistake.
Absolutely, not a problem. All right, we're going to jump out on the Krispy Kreme Donuts hotline here in hour number 2 and welcome in our softball analyst, Karen John, stats and analysis for ESPN. As I've said pretty much every week, what a resume. All-American catcher at South Carolina in her playing days, head coach at Florida and Virginia, pitching coach at Alabama, Mississippi State, and now, as I said, stats and analysis with ESPN, and we love having her on to break it down. Hey, good morning, Karen. How are you?
Good morning, Gary. Tell Wyatt not to worry. I think my second year with ESPN, did not realize that we were on air and carried a chair across behind the talent while they were on air on the screen. So it all gets better.
It happens. There's no doubt about it. Hey, speaking of it getting better, if you're an Alabama softball fan, I think there's going to come a day when UAB is going to beat Alabama. it almost came last night. The Blazers had a lead for a good portion of that game, but Alabama pulled it out 4-3 to move to 33-0 all time against the Blazers. Now, I think that's pretty remarkable from the standpoint that UAB's had some good teams. And, to be 33-0 is just, I just think that sometimes that kind of flies under the radar, but that's for a rivalry game, pretty remarkable, I think.
Yeah, it really is. And especially, and I'm just going to tell you from a former athlete standpoint, especially when you're playing in the grind of the SEC. And for Alabama, this week they had Georgia sandwiched behind Virginia Tech, who we're going to have a lot of good things to tell you about them. Emotionally, it's very challenging to get yourself to a level that you need to be at. And there's a lot of teams that don't win those midweek games because of that.
Right.
And Alabama does. And so that's a credit to that group for getting themselves ready. Gary, I remember the opening night of our stadium, we played UAB midweek, and we're 0-0 going into the sixth inning. And I thought Murph was going to lose his mind. And finally, Kelly Askew, I think, got up and hit a home run for us, and we won 1-0 in the christening of the stadium.
Yeah, how about that? You're 33-0 now.
I appreciate those nerves, yeah.
And you almost lost back in 2002. So, that streak could have ended, could have been ended, but there have been some close calls. But you're right. They found a way to get it done last night, and it's always a big win when you're playing in state. Hey, before we get to Virginia Tech, which this is an interesting series, obviously, for both these teams going out of conference, but 2 SEC series for Alabama. Karen, and they've lost them both. But I do put a but in there because it could have been worse. They lost the first 2 games at home against Florida. They managed to win the Monday night game to salvage a game and keep from being swept at home for the first time since 2002. And then they won at Georgia after losing the Friday and Saturday night games. They went on Sunday and hold on when Caleb Beaver gets a bases-loaded strikeout to end it. So they had never been swept by Georgia. They haven't been swept at all in an SEC series by 2013. So 2-4 doesn't look great on paper, but it's a heck of a lot better than what it might have been, right?
Oh, gosh, yeah, for sure. And, that's probably the way it's starting to roll out. You're looking at potentially the top 2 to 3, with Tennessee added in there. And then there's this LSU is lingering, and we're going to see what's going to happen with them, especially with their series this weekend going travel to Missouri. But you're looking at the 2 of the top 4 teams in the conference, like by far. And so, you would like to have seen a little better result, especially in those middle games. I think the middle games were the ones where the bugaboos, stuck out. The errors were in the middle game against Florida, and then the free passes to Georgia, which we talked about last week, in that middle game really hurt them because it kept extending innings. Right. When you have those boppers, when you have those kids who can go yard like that, it really just compounds the problems because you can overcome the solos. And you saw they can overcome the 1 or 2 run lead. It's really, really hard to overcome the 4 and 5 run lead. So, yeah, those 2 middle games were the concerning games. The bookend games were very competitive, great softball games.
Alabama's bye in the SEC this weekend. Murph could have scheduled a team that, he could get some wins against, guaranteed almost, or could have taken the weekend off. But instead, bringing Virginia Tech in here. And for softball fans that don't follow it, that are casual, you hear Virginia Tech, you don't think Oklahoma or Texas or Arizona or UCLA. But this is a really good team, and Keely Richard is one of the best pitchers in the country. So this is going to be a dynamic weekend series for Alabama against the Hokies.
Well, let's start with their offense, and there's certainly nothing casual about this offense. 65 home runs on the season, Gary, and they played a really good schedule too. And the thing is they're coming in. They hit 22 in the last 8 games.
That's amazing.
They are red
3
hot.
A game.
They have an incredible. They've had a game of 7 home runs, a game of 6 home runs this season. Their power might be the best in the country. It might be. It's so good, and it's so good through the order. They have power all through the order, and they have decent speed. They run the bases pretty well. They don't bunt a lot, so you're going to see them swing away. But they have a freshman that's really, really good, and Michelle Chatfield. She's, in her last 8 games, she's got 9 hits, 5 of them are home runs. So you're going to see a lot of power from this team. But the flip side to this team is that their pitching just really is struggling. They do not have Keely Richard anymore. She has graduated. They have Emma Lemley. They have Mazaron. They have Grind. Those are their three tops. And right now, they all have whips over 1, which is not good. If you're a pitching stats person, you know you want to whip under 1.
Mm-hmm.
And their last 3 appearances have really, they've done pretty good. They've done better. Opponents' batting averages are better. Lemley's big issue, she gets a ton of strikeouts, but she also gets a ton of walks. She walks a lot of hitters, but she's done better. Her last 9 innings, only 3 walks, 19 Ks, which is, good outings for her. So their pitching is manageable for the Alabama hitters.
Mm-hmm.
Their hitters are a challenge for Alabama pitchers, and so that's going to be the big step up. Again, it's going to be the same theme, though. They're probably going to get their shots here and there, and they're going to leave the yard. But as long as you're not giving free passes, clean defense, no walks, and I think that you can find some success.
Yeah, the fact that I'm trying to give Keely Richard next year eligibility, I'm really trying to make him dynamic, aren't I?
Well, I'm sure the coaching staff of Virginia Tech would appreciate that too. Yeah,
but, when you say best offense in the country possible, potential with the fact that Oklahoma's plays college softball, that's remarkable. Those home run numbers are incredible. But that's kind of the way the game's gone. And I've talked about this before, and I want to ask you about Alabama style play because they're hitting some home runs too, but. You look at softball, it used to be a game where, a lot of times 2-1, 1-0, 3-2, you're bunting, you're slapping, you're giving up an out to get a runner over. And now you see these teams, a lot of these teams doing what Virginia Tech does. They just stack their lineup with hitters and they don't bunt and they just hit. And, that's kind of what the game's gone. Don't you believe? More so than playing old school softball, it has become a hitter's game, and you get 2 outs, you get a runner on, and you hit a 2-run homer, and you got another team maybe that's trying to get a runner on first, get her to second, get her to third with 1 out, get her in on a sac fly, and other teams that are just playing for the home runs. This intersection of softball styles, Karen, is it leaning more now toward the power game all the way, or are there still some teams that are playing old school softball?
Well, I think there's some teams that can do it when there's like 6 pitchers in the whole country that you can do that with. And Alabama's fortunate to have one of them with Beaver. But when you don't have those kids in the circle, the advancement of the hitting is so good right now. And the pitching, for some reason, has not stayed in pace with the analytics like the hitting has. And so everybody says hitting a softball or baseball is the hardest thing to do in sport. But softball hitters seem to have been, and even baseball. I just worked that series last week, with Alabama, Tennessee. But for some reason, pitchers aren't capitalizing on the same footage. And I can tell you an example of a top 20 team that I was listening on an interview, and they said that they start preparing for pitchers on Tuesday, and their whole hitting approach is to prepare for the pitchers they're going to face on starting Tuesday, and they play Friday or Saturday. And then in the same breath, they say we start talking about preparation against hitters. That's usually Thursday or Friday. And see, that's where I'm struggling. I'm struggling in all kinds of areas with this pitching and catching situation going on in the college game. As a pitcher, you should be rehearsing Alabama's hitters all week. Their lineup is not going to change very much. The 12 hitters that are probably going to play. We're going to practice throwing those pitches that we know we want to use to get them out. And we're going to rehearse those hitters over and over and over again. And then we're going to throw curveballs in and we're going to say, okay, she moved up the box now because she's trying to make an adjustment. What are we going to do? How are we going to approach it? I don't feel like there's enough emphasis on that. I don't feel like catchers are giving enough information to their pitchers to make that happen, keeping slappers in the box. If I'm a catcher, I'm calling it out loud. I'm saying it out loud. She is out of the box. You need to call it. You need to stay in the box because I'm telling him you're out. Like, you've got to get in these kids' heads. Like, you've got to use your strengths. And I don't see very much of that happening, and I watch a lot of games, and I'm at a lot of games. And I just feel like the pitchers have to start working harder at getting hitters out. You have to work harder, and because you can't just constantly – you don't have you have a deep pitching staff, but do you have a good enough pitching staff to change every time once through the lineup to get a team like Georgia or Florida or Virginia Tech out? Not really, you know. So you've got to figure out how to get batter hitters out, and you know that's the thing that I think it's across the board. But I think, you know, as long as if your ace is in there, if Bieber's in there, I can play for 2 or 3 runs, maybe. Okay, against most teams.
Mm-hmm.
But you know that's just the way it is. But with the other kids, no, you have to be able to capitalize and drive the ball to the gaps and hit the ball over the fence if you want to win those games.
This series this weekend, with it not being in the SEC, but it is a high-profile series, how important is it, big picture, for Alabama to win this series? Is it really that important or not?
Yeah, long term, I think it's really important for the hosting. You know, that's the thing. You're definitely vying for the top 16, and you would love to get in that top 8. And this is a strength of schedule position for Alabama to be in. Is it weighted as much if it was on the road? No, but it's still a very good Virginia Tech team who's going to do very well in the ACC. The ACC is wide open. Clemson is not as strong as they were last year. Florida State right now currently has the worst ERA in program history. They do not have the pitching to win the ACC this year. So that is for the taking between some of those top-level teams, and I think Virginia Tech has a shot. And for Alabama to get wins over a potential ACC championship team is huge when it comes to the selection committee, especially in March, you know. So you're looking good. This isn't like February 9th where they might discard a little bit of it. This isn't, you know, you're in March now, and this is a great opportunity for Alabama. It's a great opportunity for Alabama softball fans to come out and see it. A really good hitting team, a really well-coached team. So, yeah, I think this is good implication for postseason for them. And, you know, they're fighting for that top 8. And, of course, you absolutely want to be in the top 16.
Karen John's with us for another minute or so here talking softball. You've kind of already laid out the SEC in terms of where Alabama fits in. I want to ask you that question because they did lose the first 2 series. You still have Tennessee, LSU out there. This is a really strong league. Where do you see Alabama fitting in? 2-4 to start the season. Do you think they have a shot to win the SEC regular season, or are there just too many good teams this year in Alabama already with 2-loss series behind the 8 ball? How do you see it?
Well, I think I don't know if they have a shot to win the regular season at this point. They're in the top 6, right? So you can shuffle probably 4 of those teams around, and I'm going to include Texas A&M in that whole group, that group of 6. I think those are the 6 best teams, the 4 I mentioned earlier, and then Alabama and Texas A&M. And I think, you know, the positive for Alabama is, okay, Florida's out of the way. Okay, Georgia's done. Now we've got the rest of our schedule, you know, to look ahead at. And, you know, the series are pretty manageable for them from this point forward. You know, they're on the road at Kentucky. I think they've traditionally played exceptionally well at Kentucky. They're on the road at Ole Miss, which is a very tricky team to get a finger on. I mean, they lose to UAB, but then they come back and they win the series at LSU for the first time in like 15 or 16 years, whatever it was. And then they have the tough part for Alabama is that these road games, you know, where they have to travel to. And so that's going to make it a little bit of a challenge. It's going to be tough because of the situation, the pitching situation that Tennessee has, Florida has. You know, I find it hard to believe. It's not. I wouldn't be shocked. Nothing shocks me what Coach Murphy does with that group of kids. But this is the key to that. The key to that is that Torrance needs to continue to throw well, and Salter has got to get to form where she was last year. And that's hard to do when you're number 3 because you're not getting as many. But she has got to find a way in practice, in her preparation, to eat some innings for that team, for them to have a shot at doing something like that and to win that SEC tournament. She has got to step up. She's got to find a way. You've got to grab a teammate and say, let's go. I need to work. I got to work because I have to be ready when my number's called. Because I don't think last weekend, I don't think she really came in quite prepared for that Georgia team. And I think you have to you have to find a way. There's all kinds of ways you can do that. And that's going to be the key for Alabama. It's what the number 2 and number 3 pitchers can do for them.
Great analysis as always. And on the whole Keely Richard thing, hey, you know what? I'm gonna claim this, Karen. I've been saying this for some time. Since COVID, since all the stuff with the portal, I always say you look at someone's if it says senior, junior, don't pay any attention to it because people play forever these days. So I was trying to extend her career by a couple of years. That's because
you can't look at those anymore. We have one more year and then I think we can go back to normal.
But she's got a great name and she was a great pitcher. So I was just trying to keep her in. But she's all played professional softball somewhere. So I'm laughing at myself, but I don't know where I got it in my head that she was still there. But they've turned the page, and like you said, that's a dynamic hitting team. So Alabama's going to need to be ready to go this weekend. Hey, are you on assignment this weekend?
I am not, because after this weekend, I am every weekend through the College World Series. So I'm going to enjoy my time to watch several games and lots of basketball at the same time, and enjoy my last weekend. And then I only do one game the following weekend. That's on Easter Sunday. That's Carolina at Ole Miss. But so it begins, the first weekend in May begins about a 9-week grind for me. So yeah.
If Murph's listening, he's probably thinking, well, you know what? If they're going to pitch Keeley, we'll bring Montana back for a series. How about that?
I will take that every day of the week. I will take that, and I would be there in person. I will drive down just to watch that. That's for sure, because nothing better than watching those two go at it. But yeah, so fun times, and just a really exciting softball series at Alabama Stadium. Fans really need to get out there to the Rhodes House and party out, because you're going to see two really good quality teams.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. Thank you, Karen.
All right, Gary.
All right, 10:21 here on the Gary Harris Show. Hey, as I always say on my show when I'm promoting the YMCA is ready for you when you're ready for the Y. It's just that simple. The YMCA, that beautiful facility, 2300 13th Street, it's right there. Those members that are always in there working out, a great community people, they're there. Jeff Knox, the CEO, and his staff are on hand. Great personal training, great fitness classes. Everything's in place. The only thing that's lacking is you going to the Y, signing up, and making a commitment to get in there every day. I'm recommitting myself. I've been in and out a little bit. As you know, if you listen to the show, I had the flu, and it just the residual just stayed with me, and it's been rough to get over. And why, to tell you how, we all have our different makeups, and my genetic gift is I build muscle fast. In other words, when I get in the gym, I can build muscle. But when I'm not doing anything, I put on weight. And just in the last 6 weeks, I've gained 10 pounds just from not doing anything, And then when you're not doing anything, then you start eating bad, and the next thing you know. So I got on the scale this morning because I'm headed to the gym as soon as I leave here. And I've been going a little bit, but now I'm really about to make the commitment. And when I say go to the gym, I mean going to the Y. So I've gained 10 pounds in a few weeks, and my first goal is to knock that 10 off and get back to where I was, because even where I wasn't where I wanted to be. So I want to knock that 10 off to get back to where I was. Then I want to knock off another 10 to get to where I like to be, which was what I could kind of consider my ideal weight. So I got 20 pounds to drop is the bottom line. I was only 10 away from where I like to be, but now that I put on this extra 10, I'm 20 away. You can't talk it off of you. If you could talk it off of you, Wyatt, I'd be right where I want to be. So you know what you got to do? You got to do something about it. So join me at the Y, and I'd love to see you there. And I'm really about to kick it in. This morning when I got on that scale, I said, "Oh Lord, it's time." All right, we'll be back with more of the Gary Harris Show right after this.
If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept, Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa, Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m., available for after-hours events, rehearsal dinners, receptions, and birthdays. They offer brunch and lunch catering. Call Brick and Spoon at 205-345-5551 for more information.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A partly sunny sky today with a mild afternoon. Tuscaloosa's high 75. Tonight, the sky becoming mostly cloudy, the low 45. Tomorrow, cool and wet. Cloudy with rain likely much of the day. Tomorrow's high at 64. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 60 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Tide 100.9. For more coverage of Alabama football, visit us at Tide100.9.com or download the free Tide 100.9 app.
The Crimson Tide will not be denied.
All right, 10:26. Welcome back into Gary Harris Show. Tide on Tour. We talked about it, PGA Tour event, the Valspar Championship down in Florida. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see how many we got total from Alabama playing this week. Let's see, Shelton, Colley, Riley, Thomas, Hodges, and Furr. So that's 6 players. Obviously, JT is the marquee name there. But let's give you a quick update. Davis Riley was cooking. He was 3 under through 7, but now he's dropped back a little bit. He's still in pretty good shape at 2 under through 11 holes. Now, a lot of the guys have not teed off. All right, Riley's 2 under through 11. You got Colley, who is where's Bud? Bud's 2 under through 13. Now, JT has gotten it to 1 under through 12 himself. Unfortunately, he made a birdie. He played the back 9 first. He made a birdie on 2, which was his 11th hole. And then on 3, which was his 12th hole, he had a 5-foot 7-inch putt for birdie and did not make it. That's what's stalling his momentum. I mean, he's having a hard time stringing birdies together because he's missing too many short putts. I mean, he hit it in there on his second shot to 5 feet 7 inches. If you're a tour player, the expectation is that you're going to make that putt. But he's still at 1 under, so and he's got 6 holes to play, so maybe he can get to 3 or 4 under, because I said a lot of guys are going off in the afternoon wave. Shelton is at, I want to say Robbie's at -1, too, or he was last time I saw his name. And then this afternoon, you've got Lee Hodges going off at 12:29 Central, and you've got Wilson Furr going off at 1:24 Central. So 6 Alabama players in the event this week. Hopefully, I'd love to see all 6 of them make the cut and get to the weekend, but I wanted to give you that update. All right, we're going to get to the break, and when we come back, we're going to visit with Jeff Spiegel, ABC 3340 sports anchor, host of The Zone. Always enjoy visiting with Spiegs, and we'll do it next right here on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama sports.
Covering University of Alabama sports, as well as the national and local scene as well. The Gary Harris Show, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Show. Jeff Spiegel, sports anchor, ABC 3340, host of The Zone. Time to talk a little NCAA, March Madness, and more. What's up, Jeff?
Greatest time of year, Gary.
It is. It's Bracket Thursday. Who have you got in your Final Four?
Wow. Okay, I've done 3 brackets.
Oh, you're one of those. You got like 3 different outcomes. I hear it already.
I know. But here's a bracket I truly, honestly believe in.
Okay.
You're going to think I'm crazy, and I'm not just being an SEC homer here, but I could legitimately see 3 SEC teams in the Final Four.
Yeah, I think you're crazy.
I could see Auburn, Kentucky, and Tennessee all getting there. I really, really could. And I've got Auburn beating Arizona, Tennessee beating Kentucky, and an Auburn-Tennessee rematch in the championship game.
And I thought I was silly because I only did one bracket, and I went homer and picked Alabama as the only SEC team to make it to the Final Four. I say they get hot because I've got UConn, Bama, Houston, and Purdue, and you got 3 SEC teams and none of them are Bama. So, hey, that's what makes this fun. But if 3 SEC teams, all right, I don't know who will deserve more applause. If Alabama makes it for the first time ever and I picked them, or if those 3 SEC teams, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Auburn, all make it. Either way, that's if either one of those scenarios comes to fruition, then we're both going to be, whoever gets it right is going to be taking going to be taking a bow because that's incredible. So we'll see.
Well, here's why I think that. Okay. I mean, Kentucky. We know Kentucky can score,
mm-hmm.
And when they play defense, I mean, they're tough to beat. we know Tennessee can defend, and we know Dalton Connect can fill it up every night. Those are things you have to have. They got good guard play. And Auburn is ranked in the top 10 in offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency. And that's a pretty good combination to have going into the NCAA tournament. They're not going to back down from a UConn. I mean, they played UConn before. They know this program, so I don't see them, wilting in the Sweet 16 either. I see this team, strong as an ox right now and with the potential to get stronger.
And don't get me wrong, I've got Kentucky and Tennessee both in the Elite Eight, so I do have them making runs. Unfortunately, Jeff, for the Auburn fans out there, I've got Auburn going down to San Diego State in the second round. And I've also got, I'm telling you right now, and you fall, and I love Buckyball, and I love what he's done. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. Kansas, -2 stars or not, that's still Kansas. I got Kansas knocking out Samford in the first round, and I got UAB going down in the first round as well. So, I'm not drinking the in-state Kool-Aid except for Alabama.
Well, here's going to be the key with Samford, and look, I mean, I love Bucky McMillan, I love all those guys, but there's a reason they're not playing for a Power 5 school. I mean, if you looked at it on paper, I mean, Kansas should win. But it certainly helps them, that Kansas' leading scorer is not.
Oh, no doubt.
Right. And here's the key. If Samford can turn them over, if Samford can create like 23, 24 turnovers and cash in on those turnovers, not just turn them over, but cash in on the turnovers, then that neutralizes Hunter Dickinson. But now if they can't do that, Hunter Dickinson is going to eat a chore alive if he's healthy. And because this guy can put a 25-point, 24-rebound game, without blinking an eye. He's that good. I don't really like him all that much, but he is a really, really great big man.
So who do you have winning that game, Kansas or Samford?
I got Samford winning.
And
I really do. I got Samford winning.
I bet you got UAB beating San Diego State too, don't you?
I mean, I'm not the only one who thinks that way.
I know a lot of people do.
I looked at CBS Sports and I saw, UAB is the most popular 12-5 pick. And, they're 19-6 since starting 4-5. They mowed through the AAC tournament. And, San Diego State's got a lot of pieces coming back from that team a year ago. But they finished 11-7 in their league. And, I see that as, kind of more even than maybe people or some people are giving them credit for. And I think UAB's a hot team right now, and you go with a hot team. I do. And that's kind of where we are. Having said that, my success in picking brackets has been spotty. My best year was 2019 when I had Auburn and Virginia both making the Final Four.
That's a good call.
And then Virginia winning it all. So that was my best year.
Well, that's pretty good. So, and I know a lot of Auburn fans are hoping 5 years later that they make another run. How far do you have Bama going?
I'll tell you, I've got Bama in one bracket going to the Sweet 16.
What about in your good bracket? What about in your main bracket?
Well, in another bracket, I've got them, beating College of Charleston, which is not a gimme. I mean, this is a pretty good offensive team, but then I've got them losing in the next round to St. Mary's.
All right. So Jeff thinks more of Auburn, Samford, and UAB than he does Alabama. Wyatt, what do you think about that?
No. Don't, Gary. Don't do that. Don't do that to me. I'm just saying that if Alabama has been pretty inconsistent,
and they have. You're absolutely right.
As of late. But now here's the thing. They've been competing in the best league in America. I think the SEC is the best basketball league in America. I mean, you could argue that the Big 12 is, but I think the SEC is the strongest league in America. So if you come through that in one piece, then you can make some hay in the NCAA tournament. And I see a lot of teams from the SEC, doing really well in this thing. There are some good basketball teams in that league, Alabama included.
All right, Jeff, it's going to be fun. We know that, and it's one of the most exciting sporting events. And what's cool about it, and Wyatt and I were talking about this earlier, is it's so efficient and it's run so well. But here we are Thursday, and, we got a game tipping off here, Mississippi State and Michigan State tipping off here shortly. And but you're in the first round, second round, and by Saturday night, we've already got our Sweet 16, man. You go from, of course, 68 initially. You go the first four in, you get to 64, and you turn around, the weekend's over, and you're down to 16 teams, dude. It happens fast once it starts happening, right?
It does, and the first and second round of the NCAA tournament is the best TV you'll ever watch.
Oh, it's incredible, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why nothing gets done in offices on Thursday and Friday. It might as well be a 3-day work week. Yesterday was Friday. Today is Saturday. The next day is Saturday again. The next day is Saturday again, and then it's Sunday, because nothing gets done on Thursday and Friday around the nation. I mean, the nation comes to a halt when the NCAA tournament starts in terms of the workforce. And you know what? That's a beautiful thing.
I remember you and I both remember when Bruce Pearl was at Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and Alabama had a pretty good team with Kennedy Winston and those guys, and they got upset by Bruce Pearl's team, and it was the 11 a.m. game on a Thursday. The worst thing, it's not as bad as not being in the tournament, but if you play Friday night, like you're at least you're around for a couple days, even if you lose your game, you're in the conversation. If you play that 11 a.m. game on a Thursday morning and get beat, Jeff, it's going to happen to either Mississippi State or Michigan State. That's like the worst thing. I always hate when I see Alabama playing the Thursday 11 a.m. game, because it's like, man, if you lose that one, are you really even in the tournament?
Something very similar happened, and I don't know what the exact day of the game was, but it's when Alabama lost to South Alabama, I think, right?
Yeah, that was 89. Yeah, that was over in Atlanta at the old Omni, and Bama had the 16-point lead at half and had dominated the game and wound up, I guess it was either Junie Lewis or Jeff Hodge, one hit a shot, to beat Alabama. Yeah.
Yeah, Ronnie Arrow was the coach of that team.
That's right.
And, Yep. So I don't know if that was a Thursday or Friday game.
I think it was a Thursday game. I think you're right. I think it was that early game, and Alabama was better than South Alabama. The reason you brought that up, I just remember that so well. I was working over in Mississippi, but I pulled it up. It wasn't on TV locally there, but I pulled it. That's the days, remember, before satellite feeds were scrambled, and I pulled it up on the satellite and was sitting there watching it in the control room and that day, and that was that's one of those that stings. I'm sure it still stings Wimp, because he did not like playing in-state schools to begin with, and he got paired up with South, and they lost that game. But losing the early game on a Thursday, and that's no fun. All right, let's change topics and let's get to Bama football. And you and I follow it as sportscasters, but we're not recruiting analysts. But I'm kind of getting a good feel for this staff. And I know when Alabama first hired DeBoer, Auburn pegged him Husky Harsin because they wanted to say he's going to come in here like Brian Harsin and not know the lay of the land. He's not going to be able to recruit. Hadn't been the case. I mean, Alabama recruiting under Kalen DeBoer doesn't look a lot different than it did under Nick Saban, Jeff.
Yeah, and that was the most ridiculous thing I ever heard, when he got hired, because, Nick Saban came from West Virginia. He was at Michigan State before he came to LSU, and he learned the lay of the land pretty quickly. It's all about making connections. It's all about, and in this day and time, it's all about, what you can get the player in terms of not only NFL opportunities, but NIL opportunities. And, he has had a pretty good, recruiting run here. And then, wow, what do you know? It turns out he got a 5-star tackle named Caden Proctor, out of Iowa.
How about that?
How crazy is all that? And then the Caleb Downs stuff that's making the rounds. It's crazy. So it's a great recruiting. He's off to a great start, and with the Proctor news, and if Downs comes back, I mean, they may build a statue for him before he even wins a national title.
The whole Caden Proctor deal, Jeff, have you thought about this kind of like I have with the portal and NIL? He left Alabama. He went to Iowa. He was enrolled at Iowa. Now, I heard, again, my guess is that he can't enroll until after the spring semester. But with these guys jumping around as much as they do and moving from school to school, first of all, do they give any NIL money back? I doubt it, because there's no contracts. If they've already gotten it in their pocket, I think they keep it. And secondly, academic eligibility just seems to be a non-issue now. I mean, you got guys playing at 5 schools and 3 or 4. Nobody's ever academically ineligible anymore. Have you noticed that? What's happened?
Right. Yeah, I have noticed that. Yeah, it's just It's just free agency, and it's just it's crazy. And we are, education and the quality education is really taking a back seat. I don't even know if it's in the car. Forget the back seat. I don't even know if the education factor is in the car now.
Jeez, I don't either. What do you think of this Bama baseball start with Rob Vaughn coming in here? Kind of, didn't have many guys left over from last year. Had a few, brought in some transfers, had a good recruiting class, off to a fast start, and then they won that series to open it up against Tennessee at home after dropping the Friday night game. A lot of excitement right now surrounding Alabama baseball.
Well, it's really impressive, and again, it's credit to Greg Byrne. I mean, for just making a home run hire, no pun intended. But I mean, the guy's just a good baseball guy. He connects well with that team, and boy, I mean, considering the way all of that ended with the whole Bohannon thing, and the way they came out of that, for him to get a good hire like that, and for them to get off to a good start like that, I mean, it's just fantastic for that program, and it just says a lot about, you got to hire the right people, and Greg Byrne seems to have the magic touch when it comes to that.
Jeff, I want to ask you about a national story, just because we've seen this. There was a guy with the Jacksonville Jaguars that was in their front office that had, been stealing money, and I saw something with another guy, I think it was with the Bucks or something, had been fired. And now the deal with this interpreter for Shohei Ohtani of the Dodgers, $4.5 million in wire transfers from Ohtani's bank account to pay off a bookie. And now, of course, obviously I'll take him at his word. He's claiming that Ohtani had no idea. And I understand you've got, Ohtani's making so much money, but how in the world, well, you have agents and you have accountants, and how in the world can somebody take $4.5 million? I don't care how much money you make. How in the world can they take $4.5 million out of your bank account and you not know it? Because it came to light when reporters started asking questions about the bookmaker who was under federal investigation before this even came out about the interpreter taking the money.
Right, I have no idea. Not only should the interpreter, be, of course, let go, but whoever's handling his money, somebody needs to look at that position, and that guy needs to go as well, because somebody didn't really take very good care of him in that situation. So for a valuable player like that, who's making a ton of money, I mean, you'd think he'd have some better people around him, but in this case, that's a big no.
Yeah, just because you speak English doesn't mean you should have access to my bank account. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, you do interviews for me. You shouldn't be. I mean, this stuff has just gotten crazy. And, of course, the amount of money that they're making. How do you feel about this, too? I'm not a big fan of this. The Major League Baseball season has started over in Korea. The Dodgers and Padres are playing games that count. And it doesn't even feel like it. Both clubs are 1-1. And the Major League Baseball season has technically started. And I understand you want to make it a global game and all that, but this is weird to me that the Dodgers and Padres are playing games that count right now on March 21st.
Yeah, I mean, I never have really liked it, when the NFL, took its games over there, the NBA and whatnot. I mean, I'm all about sharing the love, of the sport, in a global situation, but I don't know. I mean, it just, exhibition games are fine, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of that either. I mean, keep it all here in the States, and yeah, let's play ball where it needs to be played.
And lastly, Jeff, I'm still trying to get, prepared for 2024, and yesterday the SEC releases the 2025 conference schedules. I mean, it's just too much to keep up with these days, man. Can we get to 2024 first?
Yeah, exactly. But very intriguing though, because I like the fact Alabama's going to Athens. I love that. It just brings to mind the 2015 game. I was there in Athens on that rainy day. And when everybody thought Alabama was done and Georgia was about to take over the league, and then they had the guys were coming out of the tunnel, and Georgia was trying to mix it up with Alabama, and then Alabama put it to them, and then Auburn going to Oklahoma for the first time in school history, so that's going to be fun too. But yeah, I mean, we just keep every time I see these, the series, Alabama and so and so are going to play a series and like 2038 and 2039, I go, gosh, I wonder where I'm going to be in 2038, 2039.
Hey, we're hoping we're still going to be here on the planet.
Yeah, really.
Crazy.
Oh, man.
Great stuff as always, Jeff. And certainly this Sunday night, man, on the Zone, you're not going to have a shortage of topics to discuss.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Sunday at 10:30 on ABC 3340. Gary, appreciate your time and appreciate the plug, and have a great day.
Thank you, Jeff, very much. All right, 10:49 here, and we've got one segment to go. We got time to take a phone call on the final segment or two. If you want to give us a ring on the Krispy Kreme Donuts hotline, 205-342-9904. We'll be back to wrap it up right after this.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up on the Thursday edition of The Game, we'll feature Chris Hummer. We'll break down a lot of recruiting. We'll talk about the transfer portal, where Alabama could be going next. Rodney Orr, TiderInsider.com. Kalen DeBoer, live press conference following practice on the campus of the University of Alabama. That and a lot more starting at 2 p.m. on The Game on Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest running sports program in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Krispy Kreme doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Visit alabamacu.com to learn more. Some rules and restrictions apply. See if you're eligible for membership, then join today and feel good about your money.
As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special, Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. Get a meat and 3 vegetables for just $8.49. Or for a lighter appetite, try the Lucky Lunch soup, salad, or sandwich combo. I'll see you at the Free.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A partly sunny sky today with a mild afternoon. Tuscaloosa's high 75. Tonight, the sky becoming mostly cloudy, the low 45. Tomorrow, cool and wet. Cloudy with rain likely much of the day. Tomorrow's high at 64. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 61 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
A national championship team covering a national championship team. The best sports talk in the state. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 10:52, winding it down for this Thursday edition of the Gary Harris Show. Tomorrow morning, of course, it's the TGIF edition. We're going to have a lot of fun tomorrow morning with all that great weekend music to get you pumped up. And, of course, we'll have one day of the NCAA tournament first-round games in the books. And, of course, we'll be looking ahead to Alabama and College of Charleston tomorrow night at 6:35 out in Spokane on True TV. And the Alabama women in the first round playing Florida State tomorrow afternoon out in Austin, Texas at 4:30. So we'll have a kind of a back-to-back, perfect watch party stuff. Unfortunately, I'm going to be working, but for people who are off on Friday, man, what a shoot. I'm looking forward Saturday and Sunday to fanning it up a little bit. Let me ask you this, Wyatt, because, you know, Jeff and I were talking about playing on Thursday versus playing on Friday and the early game versus the late game and all that stuff. I again, hate playing the Thursday early game, But I like first-round games. I like playing Thursday, Saturday from the standpoint that I love playing Saturday. I love being on Saturday rather than playing on Sunday. So how do you have a preference as far as if for your team, or if you Thursday versus the Thursday, Saturday split versus the Friday, Sunday split?
Not really. I mean, it's like you said, as long as we're not playing at like 11 a.m. on Thursday, because, likely chance you're getting bounced at that point if you're playing that early most of the time. And so, as long as that's not the game we're in, because I'd like to actually be able to watch the game instead of, having to sneak it on my phone while I'm sitting downstairs in the office.
Yeah, that's the bad thing about these early games on Thursday and Friday. If you can't get off work, you're having to kind of, like you said, monitor them on your phone unless you take the day off.
I'll be in class from 12:30 to 1:45, and so my laptop's going to be pulled up. No clue what the professor's talking about. I'm sitting there watching basketball.
No, well, you shouldn't give that away. But of course, you could be like Barry.
Listen to the show. It's fine.
You could be like Barry Sanderson and be out there in Vegas, man. How about that?
That's a. Hey,
listen, that's become a very popular trip. I got some buddies out of Birmingham that do the same thing every year. Of course, I can't. That's one bad thing. People say being a sportscaster is great, and it is, but there's a lot of times that sportscasting, because I'm not going to get to go to Spokane, so sportscasting can kind of keep you from enjoying the tournament, because there's no way I can take off, today or tomorrow from either radio or TV, because we got too much to talk about,
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's kind of weird, really, in that I'm going to be at work, and it's nothing wrong with watching the games at work, because we're allowed to, because that's what I do. But, I'm trying to type stories. I'm trying to edit video. I'm trying to monitor the games. And, it's like tomorrow night when Alabama's playing, I'm not going to be able to really enjoy it the way I would be if I was out watching it as a fan. I'm going to be watching it as a sportscaster, and it is a little bit different. So, but anyway, we're going to have a lot of fun tomorrow. It's going to be a fun show, and I am hoping. I was just having a little fun with Jeff, but I do think the main reason I want to get Samford and UAB, see if you follow my thinking here, Wyatt. The main reason I picked against Samford and UAB is because so many people are picking Samford and UAB. And that always weirds me out a little bit, especially with Samford. And I listen, they are a Cinderella story, and I hope they win. Just because I picked against them doesn't mean I hope they win. But you're playing Kansas, and I don't care if Kansas is banged up. Kansas, listen. Oh, well, they're without these two guys. Well, their whole roster is blue chips. Their whole roster is made up of guys that are more talented and have been more highly recruited than probably anybody on Samford's roster. And I think Andy Kennedy's a great coach too, just like Bucky. There's some great coaches in this state, buddy. When you're talking about Oates and Kennedy and Pearl and McMillan, but I think that San Diego State, I know they're 24-10. I know this. They're going to have a lot of those guys just like last year. They're going to be 23, 24 years old, and they're going to be 6'8" and 240, and they're going to be controlling the pace. So that's why I picked against them. Hey, listen, we're out of time. It's been a fun show. This hour has been brought to you by Patterson Comer Attorneys at Law. And coming up next at 11 a.m. is T-Town Sports Daily. Wyatt, like I said, give Wyatt a hand today. He has been the only thing's bad about Wyatt is he's been doing so many shows, and he's been covering events, and one of these days, I'm going to have an interview that's going to be worthy of you writing an article on it.
I'm not. No. Look, I try. I really do try.
I know.
It's just
you've been running, man. They've been running you.
I'm here at 6 a.m. helping produce Martin Houston.
I
produce through your show. Do my show.
I hope you qualify for overtime. If not, then I hope you got some comp time coming. And look at there, DC heard me say something about overtime, and he's starting to peek in the door. Isn't that amazing? It goes out like that. But anyway, hey, listen, we appreciate all you've had to do this week. I know Justin will be back next week, so at least you get back on your normal schedule. So, but have some fun with T-Town Sports Day daily at 11 a.m. Miller's Edge from noon until 2, and then Ryan Fowler will take you home with the game. Yesterday, of course, Fowler had Kalen DeBoer. He and DeBoer are big buddies now, it seems like. So.
Seems like it. He's got him on, seems like every other week.
Like a regular segment. That's pretty cool. All right, thanks everybody for listening. Catch me on TV tonight with local sports on WVOA 23. Like I said, back here tomorrow for the TGIF edition of the Gary Harris Show. For Wyatt Fulton, I'm Gary Harris. Have a great day, everybody. Enjoy the basketball games.
listening to The Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.